Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I have a very special blues artist with us today, super cool guy. We're with Hadden Sayers, who's been around the block and then some. He's going to have some really good stories for us. A couple of quick messages. I want to thank, first of all, Jimmy Thackeray and Steve Riccozzi for connecting Hadden and I. Appreciate it, guys. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe and subscribe to the audio and video. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and that little bell on your right-hand side. That helps us out. Thank you. Hadden Sayers, originally from the Dallas area, graduated from Texas A&M with a degree in agricultural journalism. Do you happen to know Rick Homestead? What's his Holmstrom, sorry.
Yeah.
He has a degree in journalism.
Does he? I didn't know that.
Yes, he does. He was like a sports guy. Like, I think he played basketball too, and he got a degree in journalism.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's a great guitarist.
Very good. You're a very good player.
Yeah.
Hadden started playing guitar late, actually, while he was in college. He was influenced by David Grissom, of course, from Austin, who we had on here for the second time recently, and Chris Duarte. He began gigging and touring with blues and soul singer Ruthie Foster. After college, he then spent 2 years touring with Lucky Peterson, and that band was also, if I read that correct, you were B.B. King's backup band.
It was the rhythm section from B.B. King's band. I didn't play in B.B.'s band. Got to go backstage many times to see him, but I was not a part of the group.
Right on. That must have been a pretty good experience, though, seeing B.B. night after night.
Yeah, well, I didn't see him night after night because this was like the drummer and bass player were in and out of the band. Mm-hmm. And so when they weren't doing it, they had a trio. And we started with Mel Brown, who was in Bobby Blue Bland's band, and an amazing guitarist and keyboard player. And so when they got their record deal way back in I guess it was the late 80s or early 90s, they were on Clifford Antone's record label.
Okay.
And Mel Brown kind of decided to go do a Mel Brown thing rather than a Silent Partners thing, which was the name of the band. And so this rhythm section, Tony Coleman and Russell Jackson, both still out playing, great, fantastic players. They started doing this band and invariably ended up getting a lot of young guitar players from Austin. At the time I was in Austin, and that's how I got being in Austin.
That's amazing you know Grissom that long.
Yeah. I guess I met Grissom when he was playing with Joe Wheely's band, maybe in the late 80s.
Right. He said to say hello to you, by the way, because I told him when I read this, I texted him. I said, "Hey, man, I got your buddy coming." He said, "Please tell him hello." Sometime after this, Hadden started touring with his own band, the Hadden Sayers Band, both over in Europe and literally all over the States. I mean, this guy should have been getting points for every one of his miles he was on, credit card points. After that, he got married and settled down, making Ohio his home base. He's released 10 albums. He does a lot of session work on national jingles. He's also doing a lot of home concerts, which we'll talk about. If you're not familiar with Hadden's music, he's a very soulful songwriter, man. He really melodic, but he does a lot of he's not a traditional blues guy, man. He does a lot of things outside of that. He's not afraid to stretch. He's got a very good voice, man. This guy's got one of the best voices I've heard. And when he's on the guitar, he knows how to tear it up as well. So, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man. Okay, so you graduate college, you get the Lucky Peterson gig, and then, if I read this right, I guess you had accumulated a little bit of debt, so you had to get a corporate job. You wind up working for an oil company for a couple of years.
1 year.
For 1 year, okay. And then what's that? Well, then you faced I
was just going to say that the way that it transpired was I went out with Silent Partners and with Lucky Peterson, and after touring for basically about 6 months, it wasn't terribly long. I came home with like zero money, and so I decided to go ahead and try to get a real job. And the day that I got the real job, I also got a kick-ass full-time gig.
Right.
And I was going to not do that gig because I had the real job, but they're like, no, if we need to fly you, we'll do it. Let's just do by day your gig or by day your day gig, and by night come and play our gig, which was regional. It wasn't national touring, it was regional, but it was a very popular band at the time.
And they had the funds to do that for you, to fly you out whenever as needed.
Oh yeah, they were doing really well.
That's great. And so that worked out.
It did for a year, and then I had to choose one or the other. And this gets to your point, and I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's cool. Okay, so then talk about the dilemma you had, because you were about to get a promotion, and it was like a crossroads. So let me turn it over. Tell what happened. Talk about what happened.
So the way that it worked, I was in the scheduling part of an oil trading company where I was working the pipeline scheduling department, which is an 8 to 5 type job. They don't do these scheduling stuff after hours, but they were going to switch me to the marine transport part, where literally there's somebody putting gasoline into a tanker or a barge, and I'm like the guy making sure there's not a snag. Like, well, whatever, anything could happen, but I'm like the guy who would need to be on call anytime and would be checking in all the time. And at that point, I had a cell phone, but I just had like a log if I was going to do it. And I was at this crossroads of whether to, they wanted to give me this promotion, and whether or not I was going to go to this next level, which meant I couldn't really do the gig by night. I would have to just be available and on call. So that was really the crossroads. And the way that I kind of came to my decision was, have you ever heard of Ian Moore, the guitarist?
Yeah, I had Ian on the show here. He's awesome, man. Oh my God.
Fantastic. He's great.
Deep cat as well.
And a friend. I've known him for a long time. So he was playing for Joe Ely for a while. Grissom had stepped out. Maybe he was going to go do Storyville at the time. I don't remember the exact.
Or Mellencamp, maybe even.
Yeah, maybe it was Mellencamp.
Yeah.
So Grissom had stepped away. Ian Moore had stepped into that role. I was wearing a suit, had just gotten off work. He was going to go play at Rockefeller's in Houston with Joe Ely. And I walk in, I'm wearing a suit and tie. I'm standing there, and Ian's standing on stage. He's got his pants tucked into his pointy cowboy boots. He's got a pair of super reverbs up there and his beat up black guitar with the Esquire neck on it. And I look at him as he's doing sound check, and I look down at my suit, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? And I just had this moment where I was like, and I said hi to him and stuff, but like the very next day I just said, no, I can't do it. I got to keep my gig. And
wow. So it was just like, you just felt like a fish out of water compared to where you should have been.
Yeah. Like just like walking into that sound check and saying, hey, and all that. I just realized that I didn't have any place there, that where I needed to be was, loading into gigs, and whatever that meant, I just needed to keep on doing that. So
was it scary when you came to that conclusion? Was it scary, or was it like, no, I'm supposed to be here?
It wasn't scary, no, and mainly because I had the support of everybody around me too. So nobody, in this day and age, there's a lot more people going, "Oh man, I think you should go for it," rather than, "I don't know, you're gonna fuck up your life if you do that."
Yeah.
So it was definitely more the previous one where my parents were like, "Yeah, I think you should try it, and you could always come back and figure something out." Even my boss was like, down with it. So it wasn't.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's the number one common characteristic of successful musicians, is they had parental support, by far number one. Even if like a lot of houses, you might have had dysfunction, alcoholism, money problems, but the parents were like really behind the kid.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, it's almost, it's like 95% at least. So that's nice, man. Kind of hard to listen to Ian Moore do anything on a guitar and like feel like you shouldn't. I mean, feel like, man, this is not a good decision. He's such a great player.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Then you I never heard of this act. I looked them up. What a trip. Then you wound up working for Miss Molly and the Whips. Yes. She's available for Sunday church gigs. Talk about that gig and what you got out of it, because it seemed pretty pivotal for you, actually.
It definitely was. I had come out of college, the bands that I was in college, where I was the band leader. It was trio. I admired ZZ Top and Stevie Ray and the T-Birds and all those things. And so to go be a sideman, I was skeptical. It wasn't really the ultimate thing. But when I got over there and started doing it, her manager was instrumental in pretty much everything about how the band worked. He was a musician himself. He had been in several successful bands. So it was basically his, if he wanted to, he wrote a lot of songs. He was just very instrumental. And he was a very good salesman and persuader. And he persuaded me to, I had told him, I've got this is the gig that I took when I was, doing both the oil trading thing by day and then the gig at night. That was the gig. So this
Molly and the Whips.
Right, Miss Molly and the Whips. And he had convinced me that, whatever it takes, we'll figure it out. You just need to come on. And so I'll try it. And then he quickly had me writing songs for her, thinking about her as the person who's going to be singing the songs, which I felt was important. He was also, and most importantly, I think he was a person who, if I wasn't doing something that was good, he wouldn't politely like say, I think we should go another direction. He would be like immediate, like, that's stupid. Don't do that anymore. I don't like that. That sounds terrible.
Oh my God. That's like, so great.
Yeah. Initially I was like taken by surprise, but I mean, and like, kind of like offended or whatever, because I wasn't used to that, but it didn't take very long before I switched gears and was craving it. I took some of it with a grain of salt because he was a quirky individual himself and had,
right.
Sometimes maybe that wasn't the best idea, but I think overall having someone who was so direct and immediate and even to the point where he'd be sarcastic and like kind of make fun of whatever it was, it helped me grow exponentially. Just that one tiny item was huge.
That's awesome, man. Well, also it's great that you got you writing.
Yeah, definitely.
That's fantastic, man.
Mm-hmm. And arranging and all those things, we would collaborate frequently, or he would come in with just a framework for a song. And I don't know, I guess I function in those same, the methods that I learned at that time are pretty much the same as now. And even with songwriting in Nashville is a lot, like I had pictured before I ever got there, like, have you ever seen that? There's a Coen Brothers movie called Hudsucker Proxy, where there's a scene where these guys are trying to come up with the name of the Frisbee, it was the hula hoop. They're trying to come up with a name for the hula hoop, and they're like back and forth pacing and trying. It's called the Daddy. Oh no, it's called what's it called? And that's exactly how, in my experience in songwriting in Nashville, we're just like, we get to the place where we're stuck and we're just like, no, we're pacing back and forth trying to come up with the next line, literally.
That's funny, man. I'm going to watch that movie. It sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, it's good.
Two things. Did that change you? Like, are you more direct now as a result of that yourself? Or are you more like, Southern?
I am definitely more Southern, if that's the opposite of being super direct. However,
no, LA is the opposite of being super direct. It's the pecking order is like New York, South. I used to think the South, no, LA is the opposite of that.
Yeah. And Nashville is another thing where they're super nice. And then, yeah, you just don't get any more calls. But I think that I remember how beneficial it was. And so when I think it's truly appropriate and really will help, that's when I would like say, hey, when I give you some direct criticism or some direct feedback, and then I fire in. But I wouldn't do like this his name's Dickie Malone, a talented guy on a lot of levels, and he's a guy who, his personality was just so large that he would do and say whatever.
Yeah. No filter.
He's zero filter.
Yeah.
Right. And I definitely have a filter, but I'm willing to go there if I think it's going to improve the situation.
Yeah. That's the thing for me personally. That's the thing I think I've worked on myself the most communication wise, because I didn't know any better and I'd always be like that. And then I would watch people like, man, especially my wife, to be honest with them, like, you gotta, I love this woman and I'm saying the right words the wrong way. And so I really worked hard. So I like being direct, but you can be direct and soft.
Right.
And you don't have to be direct and hard. And I'm grateful, and I still work on that, but I'm grateful I spent a lot of time on that, man.
Everybody's heard of that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie. Yeah, of course.
But I just recently like checked it out at the library, the audiobook, and listened
Sure.
again. And it's powerful. I mean, it's exactly what you just described. And it's old, an old timey perspective, because not old timey perspective, but
what was written like in the early, like what,
in the
late,
30s.
I think. Yeah. I mean, that's where he did the study where he went to, what are the most popular topics, and and sex was number one in and he the number one, the best trait of successful companies, discipline, which it still is.
Mm-hmm.
I love that book.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's kind of old timey from the perspective of it sounds like Paul Harvey's radio show.
Yeah.
Cutting edge, at that point. But yeah, all the advice is completely sound and still totally valid, which is
yeah.
great.
Yeah. That's a good book. I haven't read that in a while. The other question, can you, for people who haven't had the Miss Molly and the Whips experience, can you talk about, because it's a totally interesting, it's not your standard band, like her shtick.
Yeah, she was this person. When I first heard of her, it was called Miss Molly and the Passions. She was from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and she was kind of like a Bette Midler. I'm talking about early Bette Midler, when she was doing those performances in gay clubs.
Miss Bette.
Yes, that type of thing. So that's how Molly was. She wasn't afraid of anything or anybody. She was willing to cry on stage, show her boobs on stage, do whatever it was. In the moment it took it to another level, that's what she would do. And so she also cared about being a good singer, and she is a really good singer. I say is and was because I haven't talked to her in years, so I don't know what she's up to. But definitely, she was an amazing force when it came to entertainment, and when it came to attracting crowds. She was great at it, and she literally had a bullwhip that she was very capable of using, and it seemed pretty scary. Like she could crack that thing about a foot from a guy who was dancing on the dance floor, and never had I never saw once have a problem, but
Wow.
it was a little scary. And that was kind of the thing. Her manager would bring her out kind of like he was taking her off a leash, because she was that crazy, and it was great, man.
You know what? It's kind of sad. There's not a lot of acts like that anymore. Like from a passion, it's like passion's been muted a little bit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And that whole, just the whole showmanship aspect, that was really where, that's how they defined what they were doing. And that's how that manager, Dickie, he perceived the band in that way. Okay, you guys are all going to wear black. She's going to wear her crazy dress and her big boots and a tiara, and she's going to have a whip. And that's how it's going to go. You're not going to like one day show up in jeans or do it. You know what I mean? And it really did. It was, there was some structure to it that I took even when I left, where like when I left and moved on, I realized that, you've got these people that oftentimes band people want to, they want to express their personality through the way that they dress, and you end up oftentimes looking like the Village People rather than, a group that all goes together. So,
yeah,
it's a weird component to the band, having a band. But I think that just coming up in that Houston, Texas environment, which was almost the polar opposite of an Austin, Texas environment, it shaped me in a different way than most Austin musicians got.
You also seem really good. Like you like discipline. Not, I don't mean like you like being disciplined, but you're a disciplined guy yourself. So it seems like you could appreciate that.
As an ADHD guy, I'm as disciplined as I can be. I've got all those things, those musical traits as well. But yeah, I think that I thrived on the discipline that was in that band, and I wanted it to carry it with me in a lot of ways.
That's awesome. What a good opportunity. In the mid 90s, you wind up getting your first European tour, and you had a bit of luck on your side landing that tour. If you could talk about how that happened and what did you get out of that experience?
Luck on my side at landing the tour. I guess what we're talking about is there's a band called Sunset Heights from Houston, the trio. And a very charismatic three guys, and it was like a Stevie Ray thing. And when they first came on the scene, there was a lot of, dismissal about this band because if you looked at the picture of the band, you might come to the opinion that they were just a Stevie Ray ripoff kind of a thing. And at that time, Stevie had passed, and anything remotely like that, boy, there was some hostility that brewed in the air over something like that by the musicians, not by the fans.
Sure.
So there was like this dynamic that played out like that. Anyway, I didn't necessarily buy into it, because once I saw what the band was doing, I did realize that they weren't a Stevie Ray clone, that they were a unique thing. Their thing was like a multicultural deal. The guitar player was a white guy. The drummer was an African-American guy. The bass player was a Hispanic guy, and they were pretty entrenched in their own culture. So their audience was a big blend of people. A lot of Hispanics came to the show, a lot of African-Americans, and a lot of, white boy blues rocker guys came too, Southern rock type guys. So they had a big following. It was a real unique blend, and they were trying to write their own tunes, which they did. And it was steeped in that, I call it the post Stevie Ray blues, roots rock sound,
Sure.
Archangels was kind of the prototype album for this post Stevie Ray rock thing that Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Doyle Bramhall too, and
Right.
this stuff, Storyville, me, a lot of people were on that path. So anyway, I tell all this about Sunset Heights is because they got really popular in Europe really quickly, and they were unable to do some tour. They had another tour that they were committed to, or other tour dates they had to do. So their manager, who appreciated the fact that I did not single them out as Stevie Ray throwaway, not interested in talking to him or say rude things about him, which a lot of people did at the time. He said, he listened to my album and said, I'm going to submit you to this promoter that's trying to do some touring in Germany. And that guy jumped on it and brought me over there. So that's kind of what caused me to be there. And I subsequently went back, and at one point I even went on a tour with my trio and Sunset Heights. So two trios in a full tour bus, 40-foot tour bus together. And we had,
That must have been fun.
Yeah, we had many wild adventures on that particular trip.
Are they, if I look them up, are they like on iTunes, you think, now, or?
I don't know if they're on iTunes, but surely you could find something on YouTube.
Great, man. I'd like to check those guys out.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And actually the Sunset Heights, at one point, the band went through changes, and the drummer left, and the drummer that they got to replace him was the drummer for Miss Molly and the Whips that I had played with.
Oh my God. Man, it's such a small world. I've learned.
Totally.
It's like incredibly small, the music world, no matter how big, it's really, but it also, that speaks a lot to, how do you get opportunities many times? It's not necessarily being the best. It's like, you're a nice guy and you did this well. And the guy said, hey man, you weren't a dick to my band.
Right.
Can you do this? And look at that, it probably changed your life as far as getting to tour Europe and experience and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I hear this so many times. I mean, just like putting a smile on your face goes a long way in this business and in life in general, but you see it directly here.
Yeah, definitely. And then, I started jamming with these guys. Vince Converse is the name of the guitarist, great guitar player. And many times I've jammed with him and thought, and this dude he's a mofo. He's great, And so somebody like that it'd be hard to, it doesn't make sense to me to ridicule somebody who could kick your ass on.
Yeah.
So
it's easy to, especially nowadays, you see everybody's I have a hard time with that because I don't understand what compels people to share their opinions in the first place. Mm-hmm. Especially negative stuff. You don't have to look hard to see people posting. It's just like, I don't understand. Okay. Yeah. I don't really like that. Okay. As you sit alone in your basement doing nothing, you know, it's like something like you'd find in a Dale Carnegie book. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. You know, it's
Right.
like it's like not hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an ego thing, I guess.
It's very weird.
If you can find fault with something else, you can protect your ego and your own.
Yeah, as you sit down on your couch and do nothing, you can criticize everything. Late 90s to 2004, you really toured, man, like all over the place. Talk about what that was like. What prompted you to do that, and what'd you learn out of that experience?
Well, it was a whole lot of fun. And I did learn a lot about that I enjoy doing, you know, the practice of getting in a van, driving all day, getting to the venue, setting up, you know, all that, and then repeat the process like it's Groundhog Day the next day. It wears on a lot of people. It's hard for them to do. For me, it was like I was very comfortable with it. I could just do it very well, you know.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. I mean, I guess like even going and doing a similar set day in and day out. When you see a band that's done a lot of gigs and their set is super tight, you know, I just love that. And so I was working toward those things and like finding value in performing this body of material as to the best of my capability, not getting bored with like, oh, this is the same song again. And I would oftentimes have to like, you know, kind of be a cheerleader to the guys that were supporting me, that were in the band with me, you know, saying our goal is to like take this body of work and try to give our best performance of it and find gratification in doing that. And, you know, everybody's got personal issues. This is like swimming against the current of what, you know, humans are really supposed to be doing, you know, in the sense that, I don't know if supposed to is the right word, but what humans typically do. And so like, oftentimes as you're a band person going down the road, you're managing some other life, you know, absentee version of it, you know, in the background. And that's really difficult. It goes back to like in Germany. I remember the first few tours that I was doing, I'm like using a payphone to call somebody because I couldn't call on there was no like Skype or anything like that to use at that point. So, and the same with when I first started touring, I always had a cell phone, but I wasn't like chatting on it all the time. And I was
it's like $25 to make a phone call.
50 minutes and you didn't want to go over and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. That's crazy, man. So you got a lot out of the structure. Again, you see that structure thing, man. Yeah, I could just feel that with you, man. You're very comfortable doing that. But man, I think in any kind of success, I don't know anybody who's like successful without being disciplined. It's kind of like not possible, I don't think.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think that, you know, I don't know if I answered all of your questions, but the reason that I liked it was that I was doing what I loved, playing and singing. I was, you know, during the day kind of absent-mindedly thinking up ideas for songs while I was driving or whatever. I was getting better at managing people in the sense that, you know, and everybody's always can improve on that, but a lot of unique personalities and a lot of, you know, I remember one time I was telling this older gentleman whose son was maybe getting ready to graduate from college and was a musician and maybe he'd do something. I told him how much I paid and it wasn't very much, whatever it wasn't very much. And like when I told him how much I paid somebody in my band, he was just like, that's just absurd. I don't know what to say to that. There's no way he could do that. And, you know, there's a lot of people that they just find it in their, you know, in their character that's what they want to do, at least for some amount of time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like you're working with people that are working through their youth or their, you know, their identity or however you want to phrase it. And that was like something that sometimes I get really frustrated and whatever, but for the most part, managing people, even though it's the most challenging part, was rewarding oftentimes, especially when we got into a place where we were functioning and creating a unit. Like you say, the structure was coming together.
Yeah, I could see. Did you ever have a situation where somebody that a younger cat that you had taken under your wing, later on, like you ran into him or her on the road and they said, hey man, you know, this was a really good, you know, my experience with you was good because X,
Yes,
Y, and Z. You had that.
I did. Yeah, definitely. I had that. I don't know, maybe a few years ago, I ran across a guy who's successful, and I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but I appreciate it. I think he said something along the lines of, you know, I didn't really appreciate at the time some of the things that you did and the way that you operated, but in hindsight, you know, I really value, you know, whatever it was. And then, you know,
Oh,
it
that's
maybe,
awesome.
yeah, well, certainly wasn't expecting it. And frankly, I wasn't even aware that he didn't appreciate something who, you know,
Funny. I'll tell you what, with your kids, it's a joy when that happens with your kids later, because you do know they don't appreciate it. Like you're fully aware of the pain that you're causing them. Like when they get in their mid-20s, they'll come to you and say that, and that is like, because parenting's hard, man. I thought this is hardest job ever, man. And later, because there's no like return on your investment, sort of. I hate this sounds, but it's like it's a lot of work giving, and there's no like receiving. You
right.
know, like you've been called on. That's the role, man. You chose it, right? But later, like again, I was saying, my kids are older now. Like when they were both in their mid-20s, my sons, they both came to me separately over, and they still do, which is nice. Over, you know, I really appreciate this, that, and the other thing, or you know, it was painful at the time. What you just said, you know,
Yeah.
it's nice when that happens. Whatever, when it's a kid or you know whoever, you know, it's
I
a
agree.
really rewarding.
Definitely.
What are some of the adjustments you've had to make in like this new music era?
That's a great question, because I think it's something that I don't know that everybody is like as on board with the fact that it's never going to go back the other way again. I don't know that they're that aware of
That's
how
scary.
it is scary, and it's different, and it's all these things, and so yeah, it's all that stuff. What are the things that I'm doing different? I would say that the biggest single thing that I'm still grappling a little bit, because there are
Sure.
parts of the old days that I loved, and
That's the thing, man. That was so much more fun.
mm, yeah,
And
yeah,
and you have to redefine fun, you know, which is tough for anybody at any stage of the game.
yeah, exactly. I guess uh, the biggest thing that I've done is the house concert thing. I feel like switching gears to doing solo checks a lot of boxes. Like not everybody that's the demographic of my fan base, however small that is, they're like at least my age, possibly older. There's not a,
Yeah. Baby boomers.
yeah, pretty much. So of those people, they enjoy um, acoustic, softer, not as loud. Like I was pretty damn loud, like most blues rockers early in my career. So um, they're not really equipped for loud anymore. Um, the the way that records get made now, with a much lower overhead, or it's more like a record is more your business card than it is your body of work, so to speak, and you're expected to generate more and more content for people, and to the point now where, you know, you can see it when people post these little short videos. That's kind of my new horizon, where I create micro instrumentals that I can do with a drummer, and we we create these little, you know, 60 to 90-second songs that my intention is to put in between actual, you know, 3-minute songs on another album. But the goal of having those 90-second songs is that they're kind of like an abbreviated instrumental that could have a soloist, and if I do it with a duo, or if I do it in this context, I could have a guest, which would add to, you know, the video content. I'm looking for ways to plant seeds that could eventually blossom into interesting video content that I could, you know, post on Instagram or YouTube or wherever.
Sure. Where did you get the idea for the house concerts? Because I think it's a great one.
It surely wasn't an original idea. I've been comforted over the years in realizing that, some of the people that I think are the brightest minds are very forthcoming in saying that, I really didn't come up with this idea. Most things are it's more like pattern recognition. If I put this with this.
Yeah, it's connecting more than creating.
Who else has done it, so to speak, but I'm just pattern recognition, not like some unique original thought. So to that end, I guess I don't recall exactly what was the catalyst for it initially. I just kind of decided that it would be a good idea to try. I pitched the idea to the people that are on my website or my email list, which they're not, it's a cultivated list of people who actually do respond. Okay. So those a genuine amount of those people were like, yeah, I'd like to try it. So I did a little round of it, and sure enough, like more people wanted to try it. And then there was a little bit of video for it. And oftentimes when I do a house concert, somebody else that's
there
show wants to have their own. And I went to Wichita like 3 times last year, which I haven't been to Wichita in a long time, but suddenly I'm going there more frequently, and those types of scenarios. And I get into, I've gotten into like the folk world of there's some folk, like more organized house concerts that are happening. And now I remember who got me into it. There's a guy in Columbus here named Jared Mahone. He's a super talented millennial singer-songwriter, very talented. And he had realized that he was more successful and could do as many gigs as he want and make more money doing this. I sub in a kind of an all-star funk band occasionally here in Columbus, and it's a joy because Columbus is loaded with badass musicians. And so that's how I got to talking to him on one of the set breaks, and he was the one who laid it out. And I'm like, man, I need to take you to lunch and get more details because I am going to pitch this. And the uniqueness of his idea was basically that you just have to take these people that don't know anything about about having a concert or promoting a show, and just get them up to speed, at least big enough to have a little party in their house. And that's different than going on some network that has, a series of house concerts. And I've used those from time to time, and they're fun. They're more organized. People know what they're doing. But I mean, at least more than 50% of mine are just people who've never done it, don't know what they're doing. They're just going to listen to my rules of what needs to happen, which are Jared's rules with some modifications because he's got a more millennial following than I do. So I adjusted for some of those things, but outside of that, that's kind of how I got, motivated to move forward.
So it sounds like you've systematized this thing in that when somebody has interest in a house concert, you maybe send them an email or send them to a web page that says, hey, here's how to have the best house concert. Here's how to have the least amount of work on your end. Prepare the house like this. And this is what you can. That is really, really invaluable, man.
And oftentimes people will, unless you have parties like all the time and you know what happens at a party at your house because you have them all the time,
yeah,
you really don't know. And so it's deceptive, the list of things, which seem kind of, well, okay, I'll approximate this list. It's much better if you just literally go 1, 2, 3, write down the list. It's very, very specifically doing everything that's on it exactly the way it's supposed to go. If you do that, then most of the time it's very successful. If you don't, if you deviate, we start going off course. It's kind of like, a slight, if you're paddling a canoe by yourself and you're in the back, you got to be very, keep it together.
1 degree is not like a little bit off. It's like, you could be on the other side of the planet by the time yeah. Interesting. That's a very smart thing. I like that you've systematized that, because that alone would probably get you concerts. When people read how, again, you don't know what you don't know, and you're reading this, oh, this is what happens. That alone probably gets you gigs from people that were maybe closed, or, oh, this won't work in my place. It's too small, or I don't have enough people, or we have too many people, whatever.
And oftentimes people are worried about too many people, which is never a problem.
That's great, man. Well, I'm really happy you did that. Congratulations with that. And good. And hey, man, where do if someone listening wants to hire you to do a house concert, where do they go? Is there a place on your website?
Yep. HaddenInTheHouse.com or HaddenSayers.com. Either one will send you. HaddenInTheHouse.com send you straight to the house concert portion of my website.
Awesome.
But HaddenSayers.com will show you, my website with the podcast and the house concerts and the gigs. If I were to get some gigs.
Right on. Hire this man. He's a beast. Hadden Sayers, HaddenSayers.com. Great idea, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
In 2013, you put out a record called Rolling Soul, and I really liked it. It's like sort of old school R&B funk feel of the early songs on the record.
Mm-hmm.
And man, you got a song on there called "The Man I'm Supposed to Be." What a beautiful, beautiful song that is. And I was curious what the backstory to that was. It's just a sad song, man. It's very pretty. Tell me about that.
That's one of those songs that I don't know whether, I can't recall how the title, whether it was the title, sometimes the title drives a song for me, or just the sentiment or whatever. I think really, like, most of the time when I write a song, I'll have like some sort of rhythmic pattern that it starts with, and then I start contemplating what words could fall into that. So like the tune, I don't know if
Oh yeah, man, get that guitar.
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't even tune it.
Yeah, man, you have those sixths on there,
Yeah.
and they're really beautiful. You do that a lot. Not a lot, but that's like one of your things, man, and it sounds great. And it's not, you don't do it in a standard way. A lot of guys do it, and I really love that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it does that. So like I had that little thing. And then so I was like, lately when I look into your eyes, and then it starts, that's how the song starts. And I think once I got this that's all I had was that first line. And then it kind of like blossomed into, well, this could be a song about, I appreciate you for all that my wife, my partner, and I appreciate you for all the things that you've done. And sorry, I'm not like more whatever.
Yeah. I want to be better. My heart's in the right place. I know. I think everybody feels that way when you're in a relationship with someone that like you just feel like gives you everything. You always want to like rise up. I think that's pretty normal. What a beautiful song, man. Thank you so much for, I listened to that over and over again. It was really a pretty song. Dopamine Machine, 2018. You have a song called Blood Red Coupe de Ville. Another very cool, very soulful song. And I have my notes in here. Both of those songs, you do the thing with sixth, which sounds so good. Tell me about that song. And also, you have like a little slight overdrive on that. I was curious. It's just perfect. It's just the right amount. What did you do to get that?
So the song,
if you remember,
well, to answer the last question first, I used a Marshall amplifier, which I have a 50-watt 1969 metal front small box Marshall head that I've recorded with a lot. I've had it for a long time, and it's just one of those good ones, and it's that type of amp that if you play it soft, it's clean and beautiful. And if you play it hard, it starts to distort, kind of like what a lot of amp makers these days try to build. And so it's just that amplifier. And oftentimes that particular one, when it starts to get warm, if it's been on, like if I'm recording, it'll be on all afternoon. So like toward the end of the day, it's wanting to break up pretty fast. But the complexity of that breakup, that overdrive is so pleasing and pleasant. We could get into amplifiers because I love them, but I think that's what you're speaking to. It's just that kind of like sag, tired. It's got real Mullard EL 34s in it. They're Blackburn Factory original. So that also, like, they're probably not in sync. They're not, like, a lot of times people match tubes to get more power out of the amplifier, but I find that the tubes, if they're not matched, you have more weird overtones and stuff that's cooler than just like a lot of clean power.
Sounds, man, let me show you something. If you could see that.
There you go, buddy.
It's not a 69. You said a 69 is what you have?
I'll show you.
Yeah. Oh man, you got Marshall needs to name a wing of their factory off to you. Wow, you got enough of them.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
Cabinet over there.
Very cool, man.
But yeah, so that's like,
those old Marshalls are just like, it's just such a warm sound. I love them.
It is. I love it. Chris Duarte, like, I remember I used to see him play, and he had this amp called a Fender 75. It was like a single 15, 75 watt Fender amp from the 70s or early 80s, like maybe like the late 70s. And he's so great, man. It just sounded amazing. And I commented on it, you know, like, your amp sounds so great. And the first thing out of his mouth was, all I want is a Marshall, man. I just want, it just makes the air electric, is what he said. And I was, at the time, I'm like, he was almost like a little spacey about it. And I was like, you know, but then I spent some time around Marshalls, got to see Eric Johnson a lot. Up close, got to talk to him, got to, you know, stand next to him with, that's gear that actually belonged to him.
From what I understand, everybody in Texas does.
Yeah.
He goes through so much of it.
Definitely. And then he wants to buy it back, you know, always. He gets rid of it and then he comes back around to it. But yeah, so like I've come back to that place where I think Marshalls are absolutely, they're not the only sound, but they're one of the major sounds. Yeah,
well, there's a reason why they are there's a reason why they're that, man. They're that amp, you know. That sounds great, man. How did you come up with that thing with, not that, how did you come up with, when you do the 6th, it sounds like it's different. Something about the runs that you do are a little different. Do you know what you're doing that's different?
I don't.
Yeah, but it's great. Whatever you're doing, and
I'm not even sure what part of that song has a 6 in it. Feel so alive when I'm driving down the boulevard. I feel so good when I'm behind the wheel, and I'm reminded, whatever.
Man, what long fingers you got. I'm looking at your hands. I'm like, wow, I wish my fingers were half that length. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what part of that is the 6 or which chord you're speaking to, but
you do this run. All I know is a lot of people do, and what's cool about it. This isn't something you do all the time. It's like, you know, one of the many arrows in your quiver. But man, when you pull it out and shoot it, it's just so tasty the way you approach it. I got to go back and listen to it, man. It's just, and figure it out. It's just really nice, and you do it very appropriate. You know what else you do, man? That's really cool. It's like, you're not a guy that's like shredding. But good Lord, when you do, it's like, it's almost like, what, you know, holy, you know, it's like you're not expecting it, because you don't, you know, you have a lot of little tricks. Your thing is a lot of little things, you know, and it's, when you pull any of them out at any given time, it's just, I think it makes it that much sweeter, because it's either not you know, because some guys they have one thing, you know. I don't want to name names, but you know, a lot of people, and they're famous for that thing, and that's great. But like when they pull it out, it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, that's his thing. But you know, you have a couple of things that you do that are really nice, just very tasty, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I wouldn't say that I've got like tons and tons of chops, and I probably, especially when I was younger, would have like just, you know, killed to have more and more and more. But I think that at the place that I'm at now, it's really more like just trying to drop the appropriate thing in the whole. That's not to say it needs to be one note. Maybe it is one note, but maybe it should be really complicated. I don't know. But it, you know, just whatever that is, whether it's complicated or simple, needs to find its way into the spot of the tune, basically.
I think you're doing a great job with that, man. Honestly, I think it sounds phenomenal. Post-COVID, what's the first thing you're looking forward to doing?
Post-COVID, I guess probably just getting back to doing some gigs. I haven't seen my bandmates. I'm in a band called Phil Dirt and the Dozers. I don't play all of their gigs, but I play a lot of them. It's just like an oldies band that flies to Florida and plays for huge.
Dude, where do you play?
Where?
Yeah, and here in Florida, where do you play?
A lot of retirement communities. And that means not old folks' homes, but like retirement
villages.
Villages, exactly. We play the Savannah Center, 2 shows, Turn the House. It's a big, popular band. And not the big crowd so much, but like just the guys in the group, or they're buddies of mine. I haven't spoken to them in a long time. I would have seen them a couple times by now, because every gig. If I have my solo gig, I have a sub for myself. But I look forward to seeing the guys in that band, the guys in Ruthie Foster's band, and girls in Ruthie Foster's band, and getting back to everything that I had on my schedule of gigs to play. I'm looking forward to getting back to that, and also kind of getting the cobwebs off. Hopefully I'll remember how to play Blood Red Coupe de Ville.
I'm pretty confident you'll know it, man. I don't know if this is true, but the supposedly the Villages has the highest rate of STDs in the state of Florida.
I've heard that. Okay. Yeah, and everybody, everybody makes fun of that. And I
mean, it's like you're 70 years old. You just like, we don't give a shit if you have an STD. You're just banging whatever, I guess.
Yeah, crazy. I hadn't thought of it. And like when you go to the Villages, if you do contemplate that fact, you're like, ooh.
I know. Hey, that'll be young to us one day. Unfortunately, not too long, Hadden. Oh man. Top 3 musical experiences you've had.
Let's see. Probably sitting in with David Hidalgo and Los Lobos.
Wow.
And I love David Hidalgo. He's my favorite living guitarist.
He's incredible.
Yeah. Great person, no ego, just is a conduit for insane gifted musicality. So he's definitely, that's one of them. And I guess I've witnessed some great shows. Got to see Stevie Ray a few times. And one time I got to see him on the front row with that Jeff Beck tour.
I saw that tour. That was amazing, man.
Yeah, that was great.
How crazy was that?
Mm-hmm. It was awesome. I also, just from it's weird to like categorize these things, because they fall in different boxes for me. I have a hard time like creating lists like that of what's the best versus, that. But another one that comes to mind from sitting in with Hidalgo is like a musical experience where I'm playing and something is happening that's amazing to me. But then like seeing Stevie Ray, that's just me watching. That's a whole different deal. But I also got to see at one point, I'm friendly with Billy Gibbons. And at one point I was at a rehearsal space where they played, ZZ Top played on a sound stage. And literally it was the 3 guys in ZZ Top, Elwood, the guitar tech, the front of house guy, I think his name's Rob, and me. So there's nobody else there. And they played like Blue Jean Blues for freaking 8 minutes.
Oh my, what a great song. Oh.
Yeah, and it was just freaking amazing. It was great. And so I was like blown away that here I am listening to Blue Jean Blues being played live. And I'm literally the only person outside of support staff that's taking it in,
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. So that was like a huge thing for me. Cause when I was a kid, like way before Stevie Ray and the whole, that whole thing came to be, ZZ Top was like my beacon for blues rock and for that type of music. So
did he play it? I don't know what he played live, but on the recording, that sounds like a Strat in Blue Jean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it probably was. And I don't think he was playing a Strat. I think he was playing a Les Paul.
I've never seen him really play Strats, but a lot of the earlier stuff you listen to, it's like, that's a Strat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that's very cool, man.
Mm-hmm. It was great.
ZZ Top private concert.
Yeah, definitely. So from the standpoint of musical experiences, like I said, I mean, I've had other moments where, you hear about people going into the zone where it feels effortless and they don't make any mistakes and they're not even trying, it feels like. And I've had those musical moments too, which are exceptional. So like to say top 3 musical moments, they're different types of musical moments. Those are.
No, it's cool. You answered the question, man. Thank you. It's great. You grew up like around the Dallas area pretty much?
I was born in East Texas, and then my parents and I moved to Dallas, Texas, to Plano, Texas. And I lived there from second grade to 8th grade. And then in the middle of 8th grade, I moved to the outskirts of Houston, Texas, to Sugar Land, Texas. And lived there until I moved to Texas A&M to go to college. From there to Austin, from Austin back to Houston for a while, and then Columbus, Ohio.
You guys don't leave Texas often.
No, us Texans, you mean?
Yeah, they don't. You guys don't leave Texas very often. Yeah, I know.
Not very often. I've got a long time to get used to Columbus, but now I am used to it, and I like it. So.
Yeah, well, Ian Moore is like in Seattle or something like that. He dipped as well.
He's in
what was your childhood like growing up?
My parents are young. They were 20 and 18 when I was born. So
wow.
They're still married. So they've got more than 50 years in. And
wow.
They're retired and they do stuff. So I preface by saying their age because I feel like, I as a kid, I was raised by kids. Not to say that they didn't do a good job, because they did. And they were, they did a really good job considering their age, especially. And it was a very structured, my dad had a job. He was in sales, and then he got a better sales job. He lost a job for a minute. Then he got an even better sales job. And then he was in that the rest of his career. My mom was stayed at home while he did that until we moved to Sugar Land. And then she started working at my grandparents' insurance agency that they had. It became kind of like she basically managed the whole thing. When they retired, she stayed on and managed it for a variety of different people who owned that business. So they were both, the work ethic was certainly there, always working hard.
That's amazing. You probably look back now as a dad. That's amazing. Do you think 20 and 18, like,
yeah,
like that's overwhelming,
I would think so. Yeah. I don't know how they pulled that off.
I was 26. I was overwhelmed. 20. I mean, you just, barely not even old enough to vote.
Right.
Or drink. No, you could vote. You can't drink.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Were you always drawn to the blues?
Yes. I'm not quite sure. I mean, even like I said, when I was a kid, we had, I lived in Plano. We had these pieces of plumbing pipe, and we had electrical tape on them to make frets. And me and my friends would pretend like we were playing the guitar. And the album that we would listen to, a friend of mine had, was Fandango, ZZ Top. It was a live, there's a live from New Orleans is on one side, and then it's studio on the other, that album. And we put on that live one, and even though Long Distance Boogie was like 1,000,000 miles long, we would like pretend, that whole thing. So I think that's probably where it started. And then as I got older, I don't know what drew me to the blues, outside of the fact that my best friend in Sugar Land, Texas, his brother had exquisite musical taste and turned us on to the coolest music always, and then about that same time, the Blues Brothers movie came out, and they were you go back and look at that movie, there's like all serious blues stars all over the place.
Yeah, totally.
So, I loved that movie. That helped a lot in at least exposing me to some of these blues artists. This friend of mine, Chris Colo is his name, and his brother's name was Steve Colo. He's passed on now, but he was just a fantastic a curator of music, and he turned me on to the coolest shit that I still admire and turn on to people, because it's always, something that a lot of people are unaware of on some level. So it's really
very cool, man. Low points. How many low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them?
I think that probably death is like again, there's like a lot of if you were like to spread that out, one low point that comes to mind is in the band Phil Dirt and the Dozers. We lost our drummer, and he died with us present. He had a heart attack and passed away, and it was just shocking.
Oh man, that's heavy. Like right
on the gig. Yeah, on the gig. So
wow,
it was like it was just like a lot to process, for sure. So that was certainly a dark period. And this year I've had a couple of very close bandmates pass away, and a cousin who's exactly the same age as me that I grew up with that died unexpectedly as well.
Sorry.
So,
yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, thank you. But I think, yeah, when it comes to dark periods, I would say that those are the things that, that have made me, contemplate, like maybe if you get lulled into a sense of thinking how things are going to turn out in life, something will smack you upside the head to remind you that you have no idea what's going to happen next. So, yeah, and I guess that just based around those things, the way that I don't know if I got out of it, or as much as like have learned to understand and cohabitate with it, is that, just like appreciating the moment as best that you can. And it's kind of this, all those things. I don't place nearly as much emphasis on my success, quote unquote, like, versus some other, name in that does the same thing that I do. I don't necessarily get into that. Maybe years ago I would be like frustrated. Why can't I get more traction or whatever like that? But anymore, I'm just more about like embracing to the best that I can what it is that I like to do, and giving as much attention to it as I can.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Sorry for your loss again.
Oh yeah, no worries.
You said something remind me of a guy a long time ago told me, he said, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. It's yeah, man, you just take it one day at a time. Just, and you know what I found helpful, and I've always aspired to this, but about 6 months ago, my friend was talking to me, and the way he put it allowed me to crystallize it and do it. He said, don't be part of the results committee. And I said, man, that is great, because if you for me anyway, like if I divest myself of expectations of results and just focus on what I can do to get there on a daily basis, I have much less disappointment potential, and I can just focus on the joy of what I'm doing, like what you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
that whole, that's a great one. I like that. I have never heard that, the results committee one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think that the whole "this too shall pass" idea, even though it's kind of like this broad, brief statement, if you were to take it on every level that you can think of, this too shall pass. Like, this podcast will soon be over.
Everything's temporary.
Yeah, exactly. If you can like remind yourself when something is great, terrible, or somewhere in the middle, that, like, for example, like when my little girl wants to come downstairs still all sleepy and just crawl right into my lap and go back to sleep.
That's the best.
Yeah. Like, man, you better, like, I can almost envision myself in the future going, trying to remember this moment now. You know what I mean?
You're going to.
Yeah. It's crazy. So,
wow.
That's not something that I certainly don't profess to be really good at that, but at least it's like entered my world of consciousness to think about it like that.
I never will forget this. My daughter was 11, And the night before, I was tucking her in bed. We were laying down, cuddling. I don't know. She always used to say, "Daddy, tell me funny stories." So I would tell her funny stories, or I'd read to her. And I'll never forget this. The next day I walk into her room and she goes, "Can you knock?" I was devastated. There was no transition. I was so ill prepared for that.
Yeah. Haven't even thought about that.
I was so ill prepared. I was so like down for like a couple of days. I was like, prepare me. I mean, like, and my wife said with girls, that's just, it wasn't like that with my sons. It was a little, slower, and they were much less. Girls are smarter. I was devastated, man. Yeah. So enjoy those when she comes and curls in your lap, man. Enjoy that, because it is special, man.
Definitely.
Let's talk about gear for a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars would round out your top three?
Go-to. So I've got some guitars that I was either given or I bought at substantial discount with a Fender endorsement that I had in the 90s.
Right on, man.
And they were like, I had, this is like the one that's on every one of my albums.
Yeah, that one, I was hoping you're going to pull that out. That is such a beautiful,
yeah.
That's not relic. That's real wear, I'm assuming.
It's real. It's a July 57. And I admired it when I was in college. There was a guy that played it, that owned it and played it. And actually it had.
That's an actual 57.
Yeah. So that's the guitar. So when I was in college, I admired this guy who had it, and I admired the guitar. The guy was like, kind of like a crazy guy almost, or maybe literally a crazy guy. But so he would like show up from time to time and kind of out of nowhere, get on a stage and play, and just kind of in his own world, really. And he had this guitar, and I just admired it. And not long after I had left College Station, I got a call from my former roommate who actually owned the music store in town, the little mom and pop music store.
That's a great hookup.
Yeah. He said, "Hey, he's selling the guitar. Do you want to buy it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I went over and bought it. This is probably in 1990, like that, 1989 or 90. So I've had it since then, and it did not have real pickups. It had like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Frank Zappa, Jimi Hendrix Burn, or that famous guitar player album magazine cover where he's got the burned Hendrix Strat, and it's like 70s Zappa with his long hair. It had that guitar had like a chrome pick guard with some crazy like airplane switches on it, and it had that. Exactly. Not exactly, but really close. And so surely this guy at one point was a Zappa head or something. I don't know. But when I got it, it had that kind of a pick guard set up. And I went to Fuller's Vintage Guitar and told Mr. Fuller that I was looking for some pickups. And Mike Fuller's a guy who you could come in and say that, and he'd be like, go in the back and come back out with whatever you just asked for. It wasn't out. It was just back there somewhere. So he had some real 1960 Strat pickups that he sold me, and I put them in the guitar, and they've been in it since 1990 when I got
it. A new pick guard.
Yeah, it was a custom shop gold anodized pick guard that I put on in 1990. And so it wasn't relic or anything.
That is so amazing.
But my hand like goes, you can see how my fingers,
you
mentioned my long fingers, so they like if I'm playing it like,
and that's original neck.
So I'm like this in this little spot. The pick's there, this palm is there, the fingers are there, and that's
wow.
my handprint from.
That's so. And that's the original neck.
It is. It's been refretted. I guess just once since I had it and dressed. And I have another vintage Strat that when I was playing every day, I had this one and a 63, and I would go like each day the guitar that I was playing that night had brand new strings, and the one that I played the night before had night before's strings on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good system, actually. That's smart.
It was rotating, so I was playing 57, 63, 57, 63 every day, and whichever one I wasn't playing was on a stand right there to pick it up. I liked them that much. They don't feel the same, but they play good, and I like them. They don't even sound the same, actually, but definitely kind of like that change up. Just feeling them, they felt very similar. They're Strats, so they feel that like that, but neck shape is different. Playability is about the same. Sonic quality is radically different, so I could go back and forth between them each day and kind of have a fresh.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's really cool. That was pretty smart.
Worked for me for a long time. And then they were tall to start with, and I've had them dressed, and they're pretty tired, but I don't have plans to. I don't play it very often live anymore. I've taken it on Blues Cruise a couple times, but I don't play it all the time. I still record with it.
Do you happen to know a guy called Andy Aladort?
Yeah, does he work for Guitar World or?
Yeah, he's a journalist, but he played with Dickie Betts for like 10 or 12 years. And he's got he's got a really old, like very similar looking guitar. I mean, his is beat to shit, but it's this, you don't see too many guitars that are that old that still look good.
Yeah. I want to say that I met him, out in California at a Fender event.
Maybe because he's had this. I don't know if he's endorsed by Fender, but he's had this guitar. It's like that's his thing, his shtick with that guitar. So he's got to do something with Fender.
He's a great player. I think
he is
with Edgar Winter, and when I saw him, it was Edgar Winter with Double Trouble as the rhythm section, and him on guitar, and he was freaking ruling.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. So you got those two Strats are number 1 and 2 pretty much.
Well, that one and the 63. I mentioned that I had some guitars that were given to me by Fender.
Yeah, what is that?
This is one of those guitars. Now this is I took all the guitars and kind of did what Clapton did with Blackie. I took them apart and put different parts together till I got what I liked.
Yeah.
And so this has gold foils. There's 64 gold foils. David Lindley told me about these back in the 90s before Ry Cooder had the Coodercaster with him in there. And Lindley actually gave Ry the one that he's got in the Coodercaster. Ry's setup is completely different. I just basically have mine set up exactly like a Strat, but with 3 gold foils in it. And
how do those sound?
They sound really wide and kind of hi-fi. They take overdrive great. The only thing that I've ever felt they don't do really well is if you're playing at ultra high volume in a live setting. Like when I think of that, I think of me jamming with Tab Benoit. Tab Benoit plays very loud, and he's a great player. He's a great guy. But I do feel like that his Telecaster on 10, with the amp on 10 and my amp on 10, his Telecaster does a better job of cutting than these do.
Right.
That's not something
that's a pretty niche.
Very often.
Yeah. That's like
now they've got a lot of output. So if you put them, and when I mean output, I mean they're loud. They don't have a lot of, if you put a meter on them, they're just loud. So for whatever reason, when I'm playing through an amplifier, like I use this a lot with the AC30 is my main amp of choice when I do fly dates and have backline provided. These pickups and the AC30 go well together.
Good.
So, and then it's like, it's just 5-way normal setup. It's got a tele neck.
Yeah, the whammy, the tremolo looks different too. It's the actual bar itself looks like
bar, it's just a gold bar instead of a buddy of mine passed away.
Okay.
And he's a guitar player, and somebody brought over a box of stuff and said, "Hey, take this box of Craig's stuff." And I opened it up, and it was stuff like that. It was like, some slides and some whammy bars and whatever. And I'm like, I'm going to put his gold whammy on my.
Yeah, that's nice.
goes with there's like a little gold in there with the gold foils.
That looks really cool. Those gold. I've never seen a Strat with 3 gold foils.
Yeah, you could probably Google and find a whole bunch of people that have them. And I have another one too. I have one that, quick story, it's not this one. This is the one I probably play more often. But the other one I have is the same deal. It's like other parts that I had assembled that were free Fender stuff. And I was telling Billy Gibbons, about what Lindley had told me about these pickups. And he's very specific about which ones. And it's exactly the same one that Rye has in his guitar. But I was telling Gibbons about it, and he's like, listen, we're in his car, and I'm in the passenger seat, and he's driving, and he's telling me, I'm telling him, and he's just like, listen, oh, cool. He said, we got to stop for a minute. And he pulls over to his warehouse in Houston. He got a warehouse.
Is that the one I started watching the documentary? Is that the one?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because there's a lot of different.
He's probably got a lot of warehouses.
Yeah.
Or a lot of his shit.
But yeah, we're at one particular place. He goes in and goes in the back, and he comes back out, and he's got a Teisco. He's got 4 of these pickups in there. And he goes, here's those pickups you're talking about. See if you can make something work with that, and he just, yours, take it. And I was like, wow, cool. So for a long time, I had the guitar, and I tried to play it. It played terribly. And eventually I got the courage to take them out and cram them in a Strat. And so for years I played it where like they were just surface mounted. I'd cut out holes and surface mounted to the wood, but you couldn't adjust them. So the neck pickup was way louder than the bridge pickup. And I just dealt with that as best I could. And then I took the guitar to a guy here in Columbus named Craig Phillips, who's amazing. And he made it play like the best modern contemporary guitar. No fretting out, none of that stuff. Made it adjustable, all that stuff. So this one, after I had that one done, I got him to do this one, actually put the whole thing together and make it play great and do all that stuff. So it's even did this relic finish that's on there. Actually, Craig just did that relic finish. I didn't do that.
It's a great looking guitar.
It was sunburst underneath there.
Oh,
both guitars were sunburst, and the other one still is. And this one I just had him do this blonde. I love Dave Alvin's beat up
from the Blasters.
Yeah, he had a beat up 64 Strat that looked so cool. And I said, hey, make it look like Dave Alvin's, but let's use a telly neck, and he did. So
I love those.
I play the most often.
I love those gold foils in like a Harmony, the old Stratatones. God, they sound great. Yeah, especially over the right amp. Well, that's cool, man. Very cool. Thank you.
And then the last one is this one. This is, you familiar with Magic Sam?
Yeah. I didn't. What is it? What is that? It's
a Univox, and it's called a Univox Mother. And this guitar, if you've ever seen, you should link it to your show notes. The clip, Sam's Boogie.
I know that song. I've seen that many. He has a sticker on his, I think.
It says Earl Hooker on the front, because he and Hooker were on tour together, and there's flower stickers on it too. But he and Earl Hooker were on the bill together on this German tour, European tour. And alongside them was Clifton Chenier, and they used Clifton Chenier's rhythm section. Everybody did. And so if you watch the video, you see Magic Sam with Clifton Chenier's bass player and drummer. And then you see Earl Hooker with the same rhythm section, and everybody uses this guitar.
Where did you get that?
Well, I got fascinated by it, and I got on. I was like, I'm going to find one. If you start looking for it, it's very specific to 1969. This guitar, so they made them all into the 70s, but it changed after this first year, and this logo is different. If you can see that.
So does that? Okay, so this is a 1969 Univox Mother.
Yes, and this is a Strat. If you go to the clip and watch it, this is strap on their guitar. It's exactly this one. And this is the same strap that Jimi Hendrix wore at Woodstock.
Is that couch?
That's why they still make it. It's because Dunlop reissued the Hendrix Woodstock strap, which happens to also be the Magic Sam Earl Hooker strap.
What does that sound? Is that sound like a Les Paul or?
Yes, it sounds like a wicked ass Les Paul. It feels like it's got a different scale than Les Paul. It feels like it's more like I've not even measured it to know, but when I'm playing it, it feels longer to me, and it sounds amazing, and it plays great. Well, I had Craig Phillips refret it actually, but the way that so the story of how I got it was I looked and looked and looked, and I started to realize that there's a million Univox Les Pauls, but there's very few 69 Univox Les Pauls. So I kind of like threw my hands up and said, shit, I guess I'm never going to get this, because I am transfixed by that video and just by the whole story.
You know the video you're talking about, because I've seen it many times. It's a great video.
Yeah. So I gave up looking. Maybe a couple of years goes by. I have to stop. I'm in Florida, actually. I stop at Guitar Center to get some guitar strings. I run in there real fast. I grab the strings. I turn around to leave. And as I'm walking out of the door, out of the corner of my eye, way up high, I see it. And I pass by and just keep on going out the door. And as I'm standing in the parking lot, I'm like, that was it. That was the guitar. I know it was. And I turn back around. I walk back inside, and it is. And I just immediately go to I ask them to get it down for me, and I'm like, give me a good deal on it, and they knocked $50 off or whatever, and I just immediately pulled out my credit card and bought it.
What do you pay for? Not what did you pay for yours, but what would someone pay for that now? Not yours, but if I want shopping for a 69 Univox Mother, ballpark.
I think maybe like less than 1,000.
Okay,
like $700. But I think also that it's very possible that this particular guitar will become a $2,500, $3,000 guitar, because
not if I buy it.
But you know what I mean?
It'll probably go down in price.
Suddenly somebody realizes, hey, it's a Magic Sam guitar.
Yeah.
The video is awesome. This is like a piece of blues history. It's, or whatever, however you want to approach it, it could potentially become valuable. It's kind of like this thing. Have you ever heard of an 801 CP? It's it's a Baldwin acoustic guitar. It's like Willie Nelson's.
Oh, okay.
So Willie Nelson's guitar is a Martin guitar, but it's got the Prismatone pickup from a Baldwin 801 CP. So you can see I know a lot of BS.
Yeah, you're like, you got all the intel, man.
So it's got this pickup called a Prismatone, and there's like a cult following of people that love that Prismatone, and that 801 CP is super rare. Jerry Reed, Chet Atkins, Willie Nelson, they each got one, and they each recorded with them, and they've got albums with those guitars. But it's like something that's like probably people think it should cost $500. And it's like more like $4,000 to get one because
of those three dudes.
Yeah, they're just so rare, and it's like one of those guitars that just a handful of people are even into it. But if you're into it and you want one, there's just so few that you're willing to pay $3,000 or $4,000. And I would say that this guitar could go that way. Not that I'm a connoisseur of I don't know economics or anything like that, but it would stand to logic, especially since that's how the 801 CP went.
What kind of pickups are in there? Are they the Univox pickups, or?
They are, and they're like a Japanese, they in 1960, is it 68? I think it's 68 when they reissued that Black Beauty Les Paul. You can't get a 67 Black Beauty Les Paul. I think the first year is 68. So Japanese got this Black Beauty Les Paul 68, and they're like, awesome. They took it apart. They like did their best to recreate it. And in 69, there's a Univox Mother.
Okay. So this is the Japanese Les Paul.
Yeah, it's like a knockoff, and they oftentimes you see them called lawsuit models, because this one, if you look at the headstock, it is exactly the same shape as a Les Paul, even with this piece right here. It's called bookmark or what, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. So that this guitar I love because I love that video, and when I got it and plugged it in and it sounded killer, I was like super excited because I thought, well, shit, it's Magic Sam playing and it's going to sound kill. It's probably a dud and it's going to sound like shit. It's Magic Sam's fingers that make it sound great, but his fingers do make it sound great, but it has killer tones.
That's awesome. Great, man.
Yeah,
man, well, thank you. I got to add that to my list now.
Yeah.
Give me your top 3 Desert Island discs. No particular order, just for now.
ZZ Top Tejas.
Great record.
Yeah, that one's got just a mood to it. Probably an Oscar Peterson album, maybe like Night Train. You know, I love Oscar. He's a great soloist, and he's great. The band is fantastic. So that would be another. And man, I'm terrible at lists. And I can't like stay in that zone. But let's say maybe like a Los Lobos record, like Kiko. That'd be a good one.
Those records are great. I mean, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, tough question, man. What do you like most about yourself?
Ooh. That is kind of a tough question. How do you not come off sounding like a jerk? I guess that I'm capable of collaborating with people and don't have to get swallowed up in the drama, hopefully.
So low ego.
I don't know if it's low ego, because everybody has some amount of ego just to even do this, but I would think that when it comes to working with, in a group, whether we're writing songs or recording or we're performing even, trying to figure out how the dynamic is coming together, and what role I can be to assist in getting us further down the road. I suppose if I had to be the egomaniac driver of it, I could figure out how to do that too. But sure. I guess that would be one of my strengths would be to figure that out and to be a good teammate.
All right. What would your wife say she likes most about you?
Maybe that I try. I don't give up.
Okay. Has your life been different than what you'd imagined?
Yeah, I would say so. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, when I graduated from high school, I was able to play campfire guitar, but that was it. And like a lot of people, I wasn't in a school talent show or anything like that playing guitar. But so yeah, going off and getting a degree in agricultural journalism, I had no idea.
Talk about a specialized niche, not just journalism, agricultural journalism.
Yeah, that came to be because I was really involved with agriculture when I was in high school. I was in the FFA, and
you had a cow?
Livestock, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think that's so cool, man. Honestly, when I first got hip to that, when I moved down to the South out of New York, I was like, oh, that's really hokey. And I totally think it's wonderful now. Anything that gets you involved in the world, nature, I think it's just incredible and very valuable.
Yeah, so it was really cool. I enjoyed that, and I got a little scholarship to study agriculture when I got to Texas A&M. So I chose general agriculture and started down this kind of general path. And then when it came time, as I moved through that, when it came time to select an actual major, I felt like I had evolved to a place that was not, in that cowboy space at all, really. And I was more like, hanging out with those types of, I don't want to say they're intellectuals. That's not the right word, but the more, the kids that wrote for the school newspaper were the people that I ended up hanging out. I was going to either performing and they were coming to those shows, or I was going to shows that they were at, so ended up being more, felt a kinship with those people. And I was at the place where I could just transfer over to the Department of Journalism, and they would just call the degree agricultural journalism.
Right.
It wasn't really like a 4-year course of study as much as it was, some general electives, and then follow it up with a the 2 years focused specifically on journalism.
Did you ever actually write an article for an agricultural magazine?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So like maybe as a senior, I would go to the Houston Livestock Show is like the biggest livestock show in the world. And oftentimes what happens is there's 1,000,001 little shows, whether it's like, turkeys or chickens or rabbits or, steers, whatever it is. And all these people that come from all over to show their animals, we would go as students and then write these press releases about, what happened for this show. And they oftentimes ran in the newspaper for whatever little tiny town, if little Billy from Lufkin, Texas was the reserve champion, heifer or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would write this story and his name would appear in the paper with my story. So
that's cool, man. Yeah.
That was the extent of my agricultural journalism usage.
Yeah, but you've done great for a guy who got into this so late, comparatively. Not that it's late, but comparatively.
I always thought that I could play the guitar. Even before I played campfire guitar, I just envisioned that I could pick it up and figure out how to do that. I could figure, okay, it's going to be, if you moved your finger 2 frets further, then that note's going to be 2 half steps higher, basically. So I could just envision that and how it would come together. When you bend a note, that could happen. My ears are fast, so I could hear that change, and I can get whatever I needed. And if there was some slide or some slur, it's another reason that I really like blues, is because there's a lot of that kind of sliding, and bending. And so my ears, I hear that, and that's the thing. That's the part I want to figure out. I was doing a muted rake this way and then a slide or whatever it is that makes that cool ass sound, those kind of things.
That they talk about that in Think and Grow Rich, visualization, I believe. Yeah. Talk about a specific experience that changed your life, Hadden, or changed the way you think about things.
Probably that when I mentioned that my bandmate that passed away,
the drummer,
on the gig, that was something that I recall. Quick little story. So that happened, and it was shocking, and it was all these things, and then I thought about it, all the time from a grief perspective, and from all different. What could I have done in the moment that might have changed, those, everything I could think of.
Sure.
And not long after that, maybe a couple of years, 3 years after that, we were doing a gig, and a guy in the front, really close to where I was playing, he just lost consciousness. He's an older guy. He lost consciousness, fell off his bar stool, and he was laying on the ground. And I jumped up and ran over. I put my guitar down and ran over, and I just literally put my ear up to his chest and to his face, and his heart wasn't beating and he wasn't breathing, and me and another guy were we have to do CPR right now, and so we totally did, and he came back to to life right in front of us. Just
oh my God,
freaked us out. But it was almost going through that experience and ruminating on what happened in the both the grief, but also just the mechanics of it. I don't know that I said to myself, if this ever happens again, I'm going to be prepared. It wasn't so much like that. But when it did happen, I absolutely just didn't even think twice about I don't know if I would have been that same way had that not happened to me. So yeah, it was.
You wonder sometimes how things work. Is that why that you had to experience that? You know what I'm saying? Your destiny was to save that guy's life, but you couldn't do that. I don't know how those things work.
Yeah, I don't know. And I didn't mean to tell the story in the sense that I saved his life, because probably anybody would have done it. But I was just so attuned to that, to that situation. When I saw him go down, I was just this isn't happening again, that kind of thing.
I bet he was pretty happy. I bet he was you saved my life. Thank you, man. I'm sure he was.
He was really kind of embarrassed, I think, it was more like that about the whole thing. But he had a problem with his heart where he needed a pacemaker, and the electrical. like had shut down. So like our, pulmonary CPR movement was pretty much all it took to like kind of pop it back together. So luckily it wasn't something where we were laboring, because it wasn't like I did a lot of chest compressions. I probably did, one or two, probably just one round, maybe 2 rounds. And he just jumped right. I mean, his eyes came
Dude,
open.
That's awesome, man. You saved his life.
Yeah. It was cool.
That's very cool. 2 more questions. Do you have any hobbies outside of music or interests?
My interests outside of music, I like, I have a classic car, an old Chevy, and I've kind of been contemplating whether or not to let that go on to somebody else, because I don't spend much time with it anymore now that I have kids.
Yeah.
Just don't have time for that. I love snow skiing, and went snow skiing this past Thanksgiving. So that was a blast, and we're trying to continue with that. And I kind of like the idea of snow skiing at Thanksgiving, because it's right at the beginning of the ski season. So that, it kind of motivates me to potentially maybe try to do another trip. So I would say that, yeah, snow skiing, classic cars. I used to have a motorcycle, and I've done some longer. My dad and my brother-in-law and I did a long off-road motorcycle ride through California. That was a lot of fun.
That is fun.
My dad does super long motorcycle ride, like the Neil Peart kind of long motorcycle
I was
ride.
thinking of that when you said that. Yeah.
So he does those kind of rides. I'm not, we're talking about trying to do one together, not as long as what he does, where it's like thousands of miles or whatever, but maybe like 500 or 600 miles, something like
That's
that.
a lot of riding, man. I spoke, that the thought of a motorcycle is really appealing, but I spoke to a bunch of people and they said, look, it's appealing on a nice little country road. You go on like the interstates, man, you're taking your life in your hands.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I sold my motorcycle. The trip that I went on in California, I was on a rented bike, and it was off-road specifically for that reason you just described.
Yeah.
Just rather go down fire trails at 20, 30 miles an hour with all that off-road gear than, get on a freeway where there's a semi truck that I'm riding next to.
And nobody's paying attention. Everybody's in their freaking phones. I mean, you're on the, I don't know, I'm constantly like looking, I'm like, I can't believe everybody's on their phone while they're driving on the highway.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Holy shit.
Totally.
Last question. Tell me the biggest change in your personality had over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is just a part of aging?
The biggest change in my personality is probably just trying to recognize my weaknesses and, acknowledge them rather than just turn a blind eye to it or live in denial. So yeah, I think that's probably it. A lot less denial. And I don't know whether it's, I think it's probably more about aging.
More about aging than intentional.
More about aging than anything else. Just because, like, life starts happening around, whether you're willing to prove to yourself that, or to admit something like the death of a close friend unexpectedly, something like that will make you kind of like ponder, whether you're living up to, makes me ponder whether I'm living up to what it is that whether I'm living intentionally enough or not. And, I wouldn't say that as a younger person I ever lived intentionally. I was intentionally focused on becoming a musician instead of anything else. But you can take the intentional living thing a lot further than just that. So that's a lot more my focus in the past 10 years. And that's probably because of aging and all the signs that you see around, that I see and that I feel.
Yeah, man. Intentional living means slowing the hell down, funny enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, listen, first of all, thank you so much for all your time, and I really appreciate it. It's a joy getting to know you. I'm so happy I listened to, like I said, I'm just new to your music and I love it. You're a great artist, man. I'm really digging your music. Your voice is amazing. I hope you come down to Florida again, and I'd love to connect with you and come see you play.
What Florida are you in?
I'm in Tampa.
Okay.
Do you guys ever come down here? You probably come to us. You do? That's awesome.
Yeah, and I can't think of the name. The last gig that band did was in Tampa. It was an outdoor thing, and I can't remember the name of that. I can look it up.
Was it Skippers by any chance?
Let's see where we were at. So I can't remember. Whenever we're done, I'll try to look it up,
let me tell people where to find you. First of all, it's Hadden Sayers. He's got 10 albums out. His last one was Dopamine Machine, and he actually had he put out 2 records, Acoustic Dopamine and Dopamine Machine. So one is obviously the acoustic version of the Dopamine Machine record. Great stuff on there, man. I mean, some really good songs on there. I love Blood Red Coupe de Ville, Unsatisfied, Hit the Road. There's some really cool stuff on there. And go back and check his older albums out as well. Go to his website. It's haddensayers.com. Again, HADDENSAYERS. Your first name, I never heard of someone called Hadden. Are you named after like mother's maiden name or something?
It's my grandfather's middle name.
Oh, very cool name. I've never heard that.
Yeah. And there's a guy named Hadden Spurgeon who was like a very charismatic minister from England. And my great grandfather was a minister, and he really idolized this particular individual. And so he gave this my grandfather his middle name, this guy's first name, Hadden.
Very cool. It's like a very manly name, man. Hadden. It is, dude. Also, follow Hadden on Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. He does a lot of house concerts. Like I said, if you're interested in connecting with him, there is a tab on his website at haddensayers.com, or what is it? Hadden plays?
HaddenInTheHouse.com.
HaddenInTheHouse.com, or you can just go to haddensayers.com and connect with him and let him know what you got going on. And hopefully, if you're going to invite him over to your house, you don't have COVID-19. It's a little requirement that he's got, I think. Follow him on social media. And I think that's about it. Anything else that I forgot or that you want to promote or let people be aware of?
I don't think so. I just want to thank you for doing this, Craig. You do a really good job of it. I've got a podcast called Blues is Art, where I interview kind of my contemporaries, other people that are either on the same agency that I'm on or people that I admire. I haven't done that many yet, so I'm kind of very appreciative of the work that you're doing, putting this thing together and getting it out to people. And that's something I'm taking note of.
Thanks, man. And so listen to Hadden's podcast. It's Blues is Art.
Mm-hmm, that's the name of it. Blues
is Art. And it's wherever podcasts are distributed.
Yeah.
Blues is Art. Check it out and give it a listen and tell them how much you like it. And thanks so much for your time. And I really appreciate you. You've been very generous. I'd love to see you play sometime.
Absolutely.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Check out Hadden Sayers and his music. Again, go to haddensayers.com, HADDENSAYERS.com. Follow him. Follow him on Insta, friend him. Just go to his socials and hit him up, man. Whatever the words are. I'm like showing my age now. I know how to do it. I just don't know what it's called. But on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And thanks for spending time with us, Hadden. And most important, especially nowadays, man, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Hadden, thank you so much, brother.
You, man.